Hello everyone and welcome to the Kansas City Living Lab launch webinar. We're glad you could join us. We're going to take a 2-minute pause before we get started to be able to allow the final participants to join us. But again, you have joined the Kansas City Living Lab launch webinar being hosted by Think Big Partners out of Kansas City. We'll begin in 2 minutes. Thank you very much for participating. Hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for the Kansas City Living Lab webinar. This is being hosted out of Kansas City, Missouri, and we're being hosted as a partnership between the City of Kansas City, Missouri and Think Big Partners. So welcome. On behalf of Think Big Partners, my name is Herb C. I'm Managing Partner of Think Big Partners, and with me is also Blake Miller, who's Head of our Technology, and Hunter Johnston, who's our Vice President of Innovation and Transportation Mobility. So on behalf of the three of us, we'd like to welcome you. Also, we'd like to welcome you on behalf of Bob Bennett with the City of Kansas City, Missouri. He is also on the call. He'll be joining us in conversation, but will be on the call until then. Bob, we can see that you're on. We'll have you come in shortly on the call.
So I'm here, brother.
Very good, Bob. Well, we're glad you're here. So the format for today's call is a question and answer format. The length is 1 hour. And it's going to be 40 minutes of content followed by approximately 20 minutes question and answers. During that time, we will also be accepting questions. If you have questions, please either write them down. You can verbally ask them at the end, or you can also put them into the queue by typing them into your screen on WebEx. We'll host the questions towards the end. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. So a little bit of background information before we begin. The Kansas City Living Lab was really created in conjunction with the overall Kansas City Smart and Connected City project. This project was launched in Q2 of 2016, and it was a byproduct of the planning, operations, and the build-out that took a little over 2 years that began in earnest in January 2014. This was a public-private partnership between the City of Kansas City, Missouri, Cisco, Think Big Partners, and numerous other partners. The project itself was originally designed as a $15.7 million public-private partnership. During that time, the streetcar, which is installed in Kansas City and operating around the same time, offered an opportunity for the City of Kansas City, Missouri to be able to look at the downtown Central Business District and the Crossroads District as an area to be able to install Wi-Fi and do something more. The technology partners for this project were Sprint, Sensity, Smart City Media, and numerous other smaller partners and integrators that played vital roles in the installation of the project. The other information that you should know is that the project was really designed to have a couple drivers. So the Living Lab is really the byproduct of the overall thesis of operating costs being lowered by IoT and smart technology devices, increasing efficiencies, lowering error rates, and modernizing infrastructure while improving the overall quality of life for the citizens and the people that live, work, and play in downtown Kansas City, Missouri every day. The economic development piece was realized through the innovation partnering concept, which was really facilitated by the Kansas City Living Lab. The Kansas City Living Lab was designed to be a platform that allowed access to data, technologies, and really create a platform to be able to build, test, design, commercialize, and test the technologies that the city managers and other organizations are contemplating in the smart city and IoT space. This innovation partnership is really between public and private sectors, universities, research and design facilities, and companies of all types and sizes. So some of the folks have, over the years, asked us, why create a living lab? Well, in addition to the fact that the challenges of emerging technologies are always very deep and unpredictable, the challenges, especially working in a smart city environment in the IoT sector, are especially challenging. If you think about the idea that 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is created every single day, but yet 90% of the data in the world has only been created in the last 2 years and only 1% of the data is being used, the problems that are associated with cities, if you look at the opportunity with data, it's a very large opportunity, but the urbanization trends to continue to become more complex, and a lab model to be able to test ideas, commercialize technologies is essential. We also found that over the last few years, that cities, while they're looking for these technologies and these solutions, there's also been a legacy of emerging technologies that have not always proven out to be historically successful. In fact, a lot of the cities are now facing a technology hangover to where the promise of the technology, perhaps encumbered by the associated foundational layers like connectivity, haven't really met the requirements that were outlined, during a scope of work or an RFP. And the city managers or the budgetary authorities that are wanting to contract for these technologies, they're very reticent, and they do not have the ability in the public eye to be able to purchase technologies that may be seen as less than fully diligenced, maybe emerging, or even worse, they're unproven and could cause alarm in the concerns of the citizens. So the Living Lab was really established to be able to bridge that gap. Companies are trying to respond to the needs of the city, whether they're companies from early stage companies, entrepreneurs coming out of accelerator programs, incubators, technology transfer programs or universities, or large established legacy companies that have been in the technology space for years. They are trying to respond to the needs of the cities, but they're also finding that the cost of research and development, deployment of the technologies into a testing environment, and other challenges is very time-consuming, inefficient, and is often less than ideal. Additionally, what can be constructed into a laboratory and tested isn't always the exact end-user condition. The hostile environments posed by these city infrastructures are very, very essential to be able to find out if the commercialization is truly possible based on the technology stack. So the Kansas City Living Lab was designed to create a mutually beneficial public-private partnership that takes innovation partnering to a whole new level. It allows the cities to be able to voice their needs, being able to identify emerging technologies, companies to be able to take their R&D and be able to commercialize it into the end user hands, and emerging technology companies, startups, and entrepreneurs be able to work in concert with the other two parties, and ideally this three-legged stool allows a very good partnership that allows problems of the city to be able to solve faster while the urbanization challenges of 3 million people moving to cities each week becomes more addressable. The Living Lab additionally also looks at other urbanization problems. If you look at the slides to your right or the pictures to your right, the challenges of traffic and population crowding are very, very real. In fact, if you were to look at the idea of traffic alone, traffic congestion costs Americans $124 billion a year. And if you look at just from a standpoint of productivity, the direct and indirect cost of that lost productivity and fuel and time has been associated with $186 billion that could have been saved had traffic been improved. The challenges of overcrowded urbanization population are many. Sometimes they're very direct based on the fact that you don't have quality living conditions, or they may be less perceptible to the human eye. In fact, one of the quality problems is that 3 million people die each year due to prolonged exposure to air pollution, and by 2050 this number could be 6.6 million. Or another byproduct of urbanization, overcrowded, 1 in 5 deaths for kids under 5 across the world is due to a water-related disease, which means that 783 million people in these large crowded environments do not have clean and safe water. So the cities that are facing these urbanization challenges are more important than ever before. So the Living Lab creates a partnership opportunity between the city of Kansas City, Missouri, the private sector, and the IoT smart city space and those people operating into it. Companies can gain insight and access to the smart city problems, as Bob Bennett will outline here in just a moment, along with the goals and aspirations that are outlined for the city. And the city then in return is providing the opportunity to be able to provide a test bed. Obviously, we have to diligence the technology to be able to deploy it responsibly, but this technology can be then better built, designed, and tested and then deployed if we have a real-life user environment. It's at this time that I'd like to be able to ask Bob Bennett to be able to chime in. Bob, if you could tell us a little bit about the value of the platform from the city's perspective, we would sure appreciate that insight. Bob, are you there? Okay, well, we're going to come back to Bob here and see if he's able to join us here momentarily. Again, the goal to be able to commercialize emerging technologies in the IoT space is very essential. What are some of the additional problems that can be associated with this technology stack and the opportunity in the urban core? Some of the additional problems are offering innovation teams the opportunity to be able to access people, benefits, and other thought leaderships through the Living Lab Access Program, which we'll go through here in just a moment. Also the opportunity to be able to create partnerships with other cities and organizations, or even have cross-collaborative partnerships among companies, is also one of the goals of the Living Lab Access Program. Again, the Access Program is being managed by Think Big Partners in partnership with the City of Kansas City, Missouri, and Cisco, and numerous other partners. So as we get into the Living Lab Access Program, I'd like to be able to invite Blake Miller to chime in. One of the essential components and one of the proponents of the overall Living Lab Access Program in the KC Living Lab is Cisco. Cisco has provided a DevNet portal for us. And Blake, if you can talk a little bit about what that means, given your technology background as both an entrepreneur, a technologist, and an expert in the smart city and IoT space.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. So CDP, or the Community Development Platform provided by Cisco, enables developers, entrepreneurs, large companies access to not only data, but also the domain or assets involved in a smart city. So utilizing this developers platform, you gain access to a developer's sandbox where you can create your application, integrate with other APIs and other SDKs, and do some testing before you're ready to apply for access to real-world data and control of assets.
Great, thanks, Blake. Blake, from a standpoint of the data, I think there's a company that you're working with right now that came out of the Think Big Labs that was working. Can you talk a little bit about the value of the data, the insight that into the space of how it's helped that one company?
Yeah, we're actually working in the multifamily and connected building space, and being able to connect those buildings and gain access to a lot of the building systems and other smart devices within that building. We're taking and generating a lot of data, creating insight into energy usage and other resident and property management functions within it, and being able then to report that energy usage from the building back to a city in real time. So there's a lot of other things that go into that, but we have developed a platform utilizing a lot of the data and outside applications in the CDP platform.
Great, thanks so much. Appreciate that, Blake. So the Living Lab Access Program allows you to be able to have access to the Cisco DevNet portal. And again, as Blake explained, it's been a very key component to be able to get access to the APIs and SDKs and being able to really test applications on the actual data. This data stream is going to be multiple sources. It's not just from Kansas City, but over time this will include data from other public and private organizations and other cities and other places, but really being able to build on the actual data, to be able to do testing on that as you build out the devices prior to deployment is key. Another component of the Living Lab is access to Kansas City, Missouri senior leadership. We're going to try again here to bring Bob Bennett in. We were experiencing some technical difficulties. Bob, are you with us? Bob, I can hear you. Are you there?
God.
Now we
yes,
can
I
hear
am.
You. Thanks.
Yes, I am.
Great. Great.
All right.
You know what? We just need some better data and beacons and sensors there between us and where you're at, though. So thanks for joining us. Bob, can you tell us a little bit about what access to senior leadership in the city of Kansas City, Missouri can mean and some of the problems that you all are facing?
Well, right now, I guess what we're trying to do is use the Living Lab as a way to democratize, for lack of a better term, the smart city. We know that one of the things we have to do as a city is make all of the data that we collect available to citizens. It's part of what the City Council resolved to do 6 months prior to the initiation of our public Wi-Fi and the turning on of our very first sensor. The Living Lab allows us to do that and to make it available to citizens as they require it. Now, the second thing it allows us to do is to reach out to entrepreneurs who are perhaps even seeing problems that we don't know that we have, but by analyzing our data and using their capabilities as an entrepreneur and their insights and their inspiration to solve those issues and then present them to them. And then either through direct contact with us or through our Innovation Partnership Program, which has now spawned, I think, 6 different city contracts with startup firms, where we can actually bring those technologies into a city space and apply them, and then make them available also to other cities, as you've very aptly described. The third thing that we can do is we do want to look at some specific challenge areas and get both academicians and entrepreneurs engaged in those particular challenges. Right now, we're trying to figure out a way to best use our smart city data to help out with economic development. And that's one of those things that I would like to see the Living Lab be able to engage. From a public safety perspective, I think there are some abilities for us to best focus our limited resources, and the Living Lab may give entrepreneurs an opportunity to provide those insights back to us. So we're very excited to be partnering with Think Big in this endeavor. We're grateful to Think Big and Cisco and Sprint and the other 18 partners for allowing us the chance to actually prove out that a smart city can be truly accessible to everyone, and that we can truly support each other as part of a greater ecosystem instead of in silos of awesomeness.
Great, thanks, Bob. And we'll probably, in about 2 or 3 minutes, we'll probably ask you for some of the areas of focus, especially right now that people might be thinking about, but we'll get back to you in just a moment. Some of the other things that the Living Lab Access program will allow participants is access, again, as Bob mentioned, we've got 18 partners and growing, but we actually have a list of much greater people than the initial project partners. To date, we have about 30 different partners that are interested in helping people commercialize technology, helping advance solutions, and really giving insight into either different domains of expertise and challenges that go with it, or specific technology stacks. But the ability to access innovation, technical, and executive insight, this innovation can help shorten the research and development time or provide pathways to funding or even partnership opportunities to be able to create a much more robust technology solution to address a problem. At this time, I'd like to be able to have Hunter Johnston chime in briefly. There was a use case really recently that has popped up. It's in a very beefy sector. Hunter, if you could just tell a little bit about how some of the public-private mentality on this one project in association with the lab, how that's looking.
Sure. The project is in the transportation space specifically, and we're looking at quite a different applications for the data that's coming out of the Living Lab and how we can enable everything from autonomous vehicles, whether that's in terms of actually piloting the vehicle, using data from the infrastructure to make decisions, optimizing streetlights, which has implications for safety, obviously, and even air quality. You can start to reduce idle times, things like that. So we're able to use the data we're getting, even something as simple as optimizing parking. You can already see that up on the portal today. You can go in and just find open parking spots downtown. So there's a lot we can do in the transportation space and are starting to move into some really exciting things.
Thanks, Hunter. In fact, when you shared with me that the average American spends 42 hours each year in traffic looking for a parking space at any given time, about 40% of all the cars in an urban area is actually looking for a parking space. That caught my attention, but I hadn't thought about the fact that it not only reduces the emissions, but also it's a pedestrian safety issue to get more cars off the streets, but also the land use associated with parking garages and better use of real estate is really a ripple effect, isn't it, on one solution and spanning multiple things?
Absolutely. Transportation is one, and just like public safety, that has implications all across the board. Great.
Thanks, Hunter. Another component of the Living Lab Access program is access to other smart technology and IoT companies that are looking for partnerships. As Hunter just mentioned, that project specifically is wide open. It's a big challenge, and the ability to be able to get access to those folks that are trying to look at solutions, whether it's data, hardware, software, middleware, maybe it's just process, maybe it's engineering, maybe it's a concept, or maybe it's really just a citizen that has a unique orientation to a problem. Be able to gain that insight through the lab. It's about collecting the problems and developing better solutions. Another benefit that is associated with the Living Lab Access program are partner benefits that actually have an economic input. Not just about saving time or getting better insight. It's also about saving money. As an example, Microsoft has been very nice to participate and being able to have things like Azure or Office 365. This is just one example of many other solutions, but there's a whole host of ever-changing partners that are wanting to provide benefits to really be able to enable, especially the early-stage companies that need that support the most. Being able to get that financial support, being able to get that insight can make all the difference, especially when partnering with a large company or getting the support of a large company. Just like this briefing, the Living Lab Access Program briefings is a very important component of this. As Bob Bennett mentioned, calls, whether it's one-on-one meetings, being able to attend events, or being able to really get access to specialized knowledge, that's another component of the Living Lab Access Program. We'll proactively be outlining different problem areas. We'll be featuring experts and speakers through videos, through blogs. We'll also be collecting questions from the audience and really be acting as an intermediary to be able to provide access to more information. Another aspect of the Living Lab Access Program are also being able to attend much more formal events. As an example, here in Kansas City on October 18th and 19th, we'll be hosting the Smart City Tech Summit, of which this Tech Summit is specifically oriented to public safety and data. Last year, the event was focused on domestic terrorism, very hard to prevent, but much more addressable problem, be able to manage it and regain control. That event focus was next generation command and control, of which multi-agencies at a federal level participated, but also emerging technology companies. This year's event is going to be held with a partner of ours here in Kansas City, Missouri, which we're excited to be able to feature public safety technologies from all over the globe, from emerging companies to also large legacy companies, but most importantly, being able to foster conversations, gain insight and access, and really develop, coming out of that, collaborative partnerships that can lead to pilots or commercialization of technologies much more quickly. There's also other Living Lab Access Program networking events here scheduled in Kansas City, and as we grow, we'll be having these events in different regions and throughout the country too. Another component of the Living Lab is that we are collecting pilots, not just here in Kansas City, with the City of Kansas City, but also small special use cases that could be in the private sector as well. But the ability to access infrastructure, being able to gain public or private sites, or even be able to access specialized partner assets, be able to test the technology, and be able to develop better use cases or insights is essential to the Living Lab Access Program. Kansas City is currently obviously a participant, courtesy of the City of Kansas City, Missouri, being led by Bob Bennett. But other cities are also expressing interest, and the goal of the other cities participating is if we can all work together, we can probably solve problems faster. Another benefit to the Living Lab Access Program, here in Kansas City, you have access to the Think Big Partners workspace called Think Big Co-working. We have assembled areas that we can have work groups, meetups, and even are developing a lab type of participation program. It's not an accelerator, it's not an incubator, but it's really a hybrid model that allows a peer-to-peer collaborative network to be able to focus on problems, work together in an organized fashion, be able to commercialize technology much more efficiently. We're also developing out a partner network regionally and across the country, be able to give also some similar access rights to be able to get concentrations of technologists working together to be able to solve these problems. And as we mentioned, the benefits are increasing. We're proud to finally launch this Living Lab, and more benefits will be announced as they come online. So how do you work within the Living Lab? Well, the Living Lab Access Program is really designed into two pieces. To gain access to the Living Lab Access Program, first we'd recommend going to the Living Lab website. It's www.kclivinglab.org. If you go to the .com website, that is actually not an official website, but if you go to the .org website, that is the official website. On that page, if you were to go to the web form, you can request access to both the Living Lab Access Program and the DevNet portal. Once you fill out the form, you will receive a link from our team that will then give you a link to the Cisco DevNet access, of which if you complete that registration, you will now get DevNet access through Cisco CDP. You will also receive then access to the Living Lab Access Program to receive the benefits. We will schedule a one-on-one conference call for the much more meatier requests, or for the ones that are more routine, simply wanting participation. You'll then join a mailing list subscription queue, and we'll invite you to participate in hosted calls, events, and asking questions and interact as needed. We will also give you access as needed to the workspace here in Kansas City, And over time, we're hoping to develop other technology partners or potential workspace partners across the country that are joining us in the pursuit of developing civic technology in the smart city and the IoT space. With that, again, what we'd like to do is bring Bob Bennett back onto the microphone. Bob, you and I were having a conversation the other day, and you mentioned a number of things that were especially of interest to you right now, given the time. What we always tell people, it's not enough to know what the city's interested in. What is the city interested in right now? Bob, if you can tell us what are some of the bigger challenge areas that the city is especially interested in focusing in right now, that would be great.
I guess right now, the first thing I'm looking at is as we move from Smart City Phase 1, located along the 51 square blocks in the heart of downtown, to Smart City Phase 2, which includes a good chunk of Prospect Avenue from Independence Ave in the north to 75th Avenue in the south, and connecting Prospect to the rest of the downtown digitally through a corridor along 11th and 12th Street. How do we best support business growth and development in our IT industry consistent with our digital equity strategy? I think there's an educational component to that. I certainly think there is either an innovation district or a accelerator or something which enhances entrepreneurship in that corridor component to this as well. And finally, I think there is a smart transportation component to this, which is if we do improve the educational opportunities in that corridor, but businesses take a little bit more time to grow, then how do we get folks to jobs? That may be an autonomous vehicle accounting for first, last mile to existing bus routes. It could be changing the bus routes. And I think there could be an interesting use of the data to figure that out.
Great, Bob. We sure appreciate it. I know that there's been some questions also recently, given the success of Kansas City being able to pass a very large, about $800 million bond. Are there any infrastructure projects that are also being considered by the city that maybe smart technologies could participate in?
Certainly, we're looking at changing out our street lighting, moving from poor sodium into LED lighting. One of the fun things for us is that many of the new light fixtures that all of the manufacturers are creating at least have NEMA sockets in them that we can customize over time. So right now, we're focusing on deploying the lights themselves with the ability to transform each of them into a platform for a sensor. And starting with 6,000 of those that I hope to begin installation within the next couple of months. They're going to start just east of the downtown area vicinity Troost and go as far east as Indiana Ave. And that's kind of where that piece is going to go. And again, in that from roughly Independence Ave down to about, a little bit south of Cleaver for the full rectangle. And then a smaller rectangle directly along Prospect to support the Prospect Max Bus Rapid Transit line as it deploys. So that is an infrastructure development that we're already initiating. Outside of that, I anticipate that we will have need for smart lighting elsewhere in the city. I am hopeful that smart water can be the next department that we really bring online and figuring out ways to best manage both our $4 billion EPA mandate to improve both our storm sewer and wastewater sewage systems, but then also to figure out how we're going to manage the natural ebb and flow of Brush Creek and the Missouri River and all the other tributaries we have in the area.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. One last question, Bob, before we go to next steps and then open up to Q&A, which if you could stay on, that'd be great. Have you seen any initial successes with early stage companies being able to access data or other components of the Smart and Connected City project here in Kansas City?
Certainly. I mean, I think you highlighted earlier Exact, which I know began life there in the office spaces at Think Big, came on board during the Smart City Challenge that we did with the Department of Transportation. And in the, I guess it's been 10 months or so since Exact has been on board, they've taken advantage of the data sets that exist from the dynamic sets and the sensors and whatever else have you there, and combined that with our existing open data platform to figure out a way now to predict potholes. And that prediction is changing the way that we do road maintenance. We now have a pilot ongoing for 6 streets whereby we are preemptively fixing streets where we know potholes are likely to occur based on the weather patterns, which we get from third-party data, based on street conditions, which come from a city data set, and based on some of the dynamic data we're getting with regard to the volume and type of traffic they're traveling on our roads. That alone is going to allow us to make significantly more efficient use of the $4 million or so a year that we get to address road problems that, on a conservative estimate, require somewhere between $8 and $10 million worth of activity a year. So the more we can do that, the closer we can get to actually meeting our requirements over time, because we're able to do things from a maintenance perspective instead of an emergency management perspective.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Well, we'll go to the next slide here, and again, if you could stay on, Bob, that'd be great.
Sure.
The next steps, besides taking questions and answers, we'll kind of frame it this way. For entrepreneurs and startups, we've been in the commercialization and technology space and work with entrepreneurs now for about 9 years. It seems like if you're an entrepreneur startup on this call or watching this after the live presentation, if you're looking for access to better understanding of problems, develop relationships with the cities, if you're in the civic technology space, if you have a need to be able to test a product or an idea, or really being able to gain access ideally to even potential capital, the best way to attract all those opportunities is to get better insight and build better products. The Living Lab Access Program and the KC Living Lab could be for you. For innovators, and we define those both as entrepreneurs and startups and even large companies, it may be a little bit more. For the innovators, to be able to create the public-private partnerships or to participate in pilots, if you are in a pilot looking for partners, or if you have a solution that you think is worthy of a pilot, let us know. The ability to be able to bring pilots much more seamlessly into the realm of cities, be able to create a much more robust pilot while we have engineering and access to certain infrastructure components, we can get more value by testing more things that are designed to be able to have better solutions. If you're an academic, we love the academics. As a matter of fact, we have one question already from the academic community, which we'll air in just a moment. But if you're trying to get access to the research, trying to provide ideas on how to be able to commercialize technology, create innovation, or maybe even be able to develop curriculum, being able to access the Living Lab program, participate in the hosted events, or the calls might be a good way for you to be able to develop a smart city or IoT understanding that then can teach our next generation of innovators how to build technologies that matter. For the large companies, if you're trying to be more agile, creative, if you're trying to look at emerging technologies from the entrepreneur, accelerator, incubator, startup community, this is a great forum for you to be able to get access to folks that are interested in the smart city and the IoT space. Also, if you're looking for public-private partnerships, or even being able to develop a pilot that you are open to having academics or innovators participate in, or early-stage companies, please let us know. We'd be able to make matchmaking occur, and we'd love to be able to make the Living Lab a very beneficial tool for you. For other cities, we're all in this together. The city of Kansas City, Missouri, and other cities that we've worked with for the past year or two, we're finding that there's a growing need for us to be able to share information, whether it's based on data visualization platforms or infrastructure or public safety or specific technologies in water or anything else. There's so many implications, and it's not just cities. It could be regions. In fact, as an example, crop production takes 70% of all the global water supply, and for us to be able to produce more food, which we have to almost double the amount of food we produce here in the next 30 years, that will take an extraordinary amount of water. So whether it's a problem from a city or a region or from just simply humanity, if you have a problem that you're trying to find a solution to, let us know, give us those problems, give us access, better insight, and we'll try and help you find solutions that can be paired up with either local, regional, or even national companies or even global companies that are interested in making a difference in your community. If you are interested in being a potential Kansas City Living Lab partner, it could be a technology solution, it could be a sponsor of an event, it could be a host of an event, it could be a public-private partnership on a pilot. or it could be something else that we haven't thought of. Please let us know. To be able to provide benefits to the cities, the companies, the academics, the innovators, and the early stage entrepreneurs and companies is vital. We've got to be able to produce technology much more efficiently, and your help is greatly appreciated. And lastly, there's an organization that we've not listed. Please let us know how we can be of help, whether it's a media request or it is a request for specialized access based on a need. Please let us know. If you need to get access, go to kclivinglab.org. There's a web form there. You can contact us through that. You can also follow us on social media. Or if you need to go directly to the manager, again, we're Think Big Partners. We're the manager of the KC Living Lab. You can contact us through our website, or you can send us an email at info@thinkbigpartners.com. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Hunter, if you can read one of the questions that rolled in, that'd be great.
Sure, we've got one on chat here from Andrew, who's a resident at UMKC. And his question is, in his previous research, he couldn't quite tell if DevNet provided a physical layer to include wireless infrastructure of some type, or if it's just a data layer, or both. He's interested in a low-power solution and has prototyped it with some good non-Cisco tech. So his question at the end of the day here is, if his technology utilizes non-Cisco vendors, can it still be part of the Living Lab?
Bob, do you want to handle that one, or do you want us to handle that one?
I'll start and let you finish. What I will say is any vendor doesn't really matter so long as the data that are derived from a source can then be submitted to and integrated into the Civic data platform. Now that is a Cisco product, but there's sort of three rules when it comes to data, in my mind, in a city environment. Rule number one is the data have to be shareable. Quite frankly, that's why I'm so excited about the Living Lab. Rule number two is when the data come out of the gunkulator, it's pretty much city data. Whatever you use on the left side of the algorithm to make your business run, that can be proprietary and do what you want to do. But if the city is using that data, that which the city uses at the top of the equation becomes city data. And the third piece is that understand that it will be shared, both through the Living Lab, and it may be integrated into the algorithms that we use to do city analysis for operations. But beyond that, I'll defer to you there, Robert.
Great, thanks so much. I'm going to also defer to one of our resident experts, Blake Miller, who's an expert in the smart city and IoT space. Blake?
Sure. So just to kind of piggyback on what Bob said and give a little bit more from the technical side of it, the answer is it gives both. When it comes to the data is accessible in real time. When it comes to access to the wireless infrastructure, a lot of that is done within a sandbox. So you're not actually hitting the real world device, but you are virtualizing it and being able to test your devices in conjunction with it. Once you do have a demonstratable solution, if you're bringing your own device onto the system, you would then apply for full integration into the actual CDP platform. So it's not all just Cisco devices. They have a lot of partners that are already on the platform. And the whole intent of access to the CDP platform is to be able to come on, test with other devices, with your own device or another device that's not already integrated, get a solution working, and then apply for that solution to be available on the platform for other cities to be able to use.
Great, thanks, Blake. And it looks like we have another question. What is the Civic Data Platform? Is this the Smart City dashboard mentioned on the Kansas City Living Lab website? What does it look like, and how do we integrate? Blake, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to take that one?
Yes, so the Civic Data Platform, I think being interchanged with also CDP, Community Development Platform, it is a dashboard. There are different dashboards for different user levels within the city, but also from outside the city. Different folks, depending on their access level, has different data dashboards, so everyone's looks a little bit different. When it comes to the integration side of things, that is where you actually go to the kclivinglab.org and start the sign-up process to be able to gain access to make your own integrations.
Great. Another question, the purpose of the communications and the frequency, we should be having regularly scheduled conference calls. Obviously, we can increase the frequency as needed. At the very least, it'll be every other month. Likely in the outset, it'll probably be every month, and obviously we will also have specialized ones to where if there's a specific problem that has been elevated, then we will probably even have specialized hosted conference calls on specific problems. If you were to sign up for the Living Lab Access Program, you're going to expect monthly communication, but really what we'd tell you is to be able to log on to the website. If you have a blog entry that you'd like to contribute, that was another question. You're more than welcome if you're an expert in the industry. Clearly, we would like to make sure that it is very technology agnostic, but we definitely want experts from around the country to be able to feature their expertise. The goal of the Living Lab is to be able to have a collaborative community working globally to be able to solve these civic technology, urbanization challenges and problems that the cities face. And the city of Kansas City, Missouri is demonstrating their leadership to be able to help take on that challenge along with other cities that we're partners with. So with that, we will also open up the mic. The mic is live. If there's anyone that has a question, while we also look for other questions that are coming in via the web, does anyone have a question that they'd like to be able to use their microphone to be able to ask? Okay. I can hear somebody there. Is there anyone with a question that they'd like to be able to ask? Okay. Another question specifically on the transportation mobility side. Hunter, I'll ask you, on the transportation mobility, what do you see as being one of the biggest challenges on transportation and mobility? Is it really a hardware problem? Is it a software problem? Is it a public problem, or is it all problems? What's the biggest challenges that you see in the transportation and mobility space?
There are a lot of problems right now. One of the biggest ones is regulation. You know, we need some clear direction at the federal level, really, before we can make some of the investments that are going to be necessary. But there's also an infrastructure problem. The cars themselves have come a long way, and there's a lot of autonomy built into vehicles, or that can be very quickly and easily added to the fleet. But they need something to talk to. So we need ubiquitous, smart infrastructure. And what's really exciting about Kansas City right now is that that infrastructure is being expanded each and every day. So we have more and more to work with. It should be really interesting here to see what develops in Kansas City over the next few months.
Great, thanks, Hunter. Hunter, I'm going to take this next question. The question's coming up on what is the attitude of cities towards the modernization of data, and what's the relationship of the citizens to that data? That's a great question. As Hunter mentioned, the regulatory environment is quickly changing. However, the privacy issues associated with PII, personally identifiable information, and de-identified aggregated data, those are two different data sets that both exist at the same time. Really, it's more based on permissible use. Based on it, if you were to think as a citizen, the biggest sensor that you have is probably in your hand or in your pocket most of the time, and that's called your smartphone. The ability for cities to be able to provide better services by having better data insight to be able to provide things to the citizens is going to be collected from the different sensors and beacons located throughout the city to include smartphones. But the ability to be able to make sure that the public is aware and the compliance by the cities like the city of Kansas City, Missouri with this open data policy. It's a very delicate balance, but the city of Kansas City, Missouri has been very proactive in establishing clear boundaries to it and evolving as conditions allow and making sure that everyone has a healthy balance of privacy, security, while also providing the best insight to providing the best governance and city services at the city level. The ability to be able to save cost or even create revenue streams is essential for cities as the infrastructure is already stressed, and the ability to be able to provide financial inputs where it is both practical, feasible, and allowable and clearly legal is very, very important. But again, the privacy concerns are of very, very high consideration for all parties, and the city of Kansas City, Missouri has done a phenomenal job of being able to balance that demand. So with that, we have another question that just rolled in. Hunter, do you want to read this one?
Sure. This one's from Miles, and he wants to know what kind of sensor data is currently being collected and available in the Living Lab.
Bob, are you still there with us?
Yes, I am.
Bob, the question was, what is some of the currently available data sets that either will be making its way to CDP or on CDP now? Can you identify some of those data sets and or the origin of some of those data streams?
The origin of data streams primarily right now are coming from Sensity. They have the sensors that are located in the streetlights, both for vehicle counting, poorly parked vehicles. They've got some personnel or pedestrian counts, and then we should be having in there now. I believe it's complete. Sprint had loaded up the Wi-Fi access data. So how many people were hitting different access points, what their general source was, down to about area code level of fidelity, but not any lower than that. And I believe that's available now too, but I'm not positive.
Great. Thanks so much, Bob, for that insight. Obviously, the Sensity systems with the optical sensor, the NEMA Socket. That NEMA Socket, by the way, for all the innovators out there that aren't familiar with it, that NEMA Socket's like a universal connection that you can plug, sensors and other things into that. It's the greatest thing about the lights is that it's usually out of the way, it's safe, it's secure, it's unobstructed visibility, and it's got good connectivity, and that NEMA Socket is just gold and being able to create a sensor that can do a lot of things. We had another question rolled in. Hunter, if you can take this one and read it, please.
Yeah, actually, we just had two questions come in. So, first one here, will this presentation be available offline to distribute to anyone not able to join the call today?
Yes, this presentation will be available at kclivinglab.org. It will be both on the blog. It'll also be available so you can download it as a PDF and print it and circulate it. And if you'd like additional information on that, we'd encourage you to be able to contact us through that website, or you can go to info@thinkbigpartners.com, but absolutely. And we would like to be able to get as much participation from the world community, and we invite you to be able to share this with folks and create opportunity for us to collaborate. Hunter, how about the next question?
The next question is from someone who teaches at a STEM nonprofit that works with coding and smartphone applications. They're currently working on a water quality testing study and want to know how different STEM labs can participate in the KC Living Lab Sandbox.
Gosh, that is a great question. I have an answer. Bob, I'll open it up first to you if you've got any feedback on that, and then we'll tackle it from this side too.
No, actually, I'll just generally go straight to you, since that's what I'll be doing with generally anyone who wants to participate. I'm just excited that we've got STEM labs participating.
Great. Well, we're very excited, especially for those that are in the academic community, to participate, whether you're in university, post-secondary level, or in the high school or middle school level. Obviously, these are the next generation of innovators, and be able to create a real-life experiential, based experience on real data and real problems. We're really excited for those folks, especially who don't know what can't be done yet, to be able to participate. If you'll contact us through the Living Lab website, let us know. We've got various ways, whether it's materials, access to briefings, if you're remote, being able to plug into conference calls, or even be able to get special access to events. We're happy to be able to host classes. We can provide partnerships with some of our partners. They've got curriculum. They also have special programs oftentimes for these young minds to be able to engage in. But for us to be able to create an orientation based on STEM, which is incredibly valuable and important, thank you for your service, but be able to get these young minds to be able to understand the value of STEM learning, especially as applies to civic technology and the urbanization problems. If they can make a dent on water, safety, pollution, air quality, traffic, all these things that really matter, that would be phenomenal. We love the participation. We're happy to be able to create multiple ways. We've got some out-of-the-box ways right now that we can send to you too. Hunter, any other questions online?
That's all I've got.
Okay, we'll open it one more time. The microphone is open to anyone who would like to be able to say something and ask a question. If not, we'll wrap up with one last thing. Anyone with a question that they'd like to be able to ask via the mic? Okay, if none, if you have one last question you want to type in, please do so. Bob, any last words as we wrap up the Kansas City Living Lab launch webinar?
Not really. I mean, I'm really excited to watch what this thing does. And the fact that we are expanding now the team to include everybody who participates in Living Lab for our Smart City development means that we are expanding the opportunities that we can take advantage of. So I'm really excited and glad to see it up and running.
Very good. Well, thanks, Bob, so much for that input. We do have one more question that came in. The question is, are companies, organizations from outside the U.S. welcome to join? The answer is absolutely. We are very, very interested. It's a very small global community that we live in today. The problems here in Kansas City are not unlike problems that are across the country or across the globe. And we would welcome participation from groups all across the globe to be able to let us know what are your problems, what are your solutions, what are your thoughts, ways that you can either create a challenge, develop a pilot, or even contribute some type of solution or knowledge to this knowledge base. We absolutely welcome your participation. We also can connect you to other organizations that are also looking for the same types of inputs. So please let us know how we can help. But absolutely, if you're from outside the U.S., you're absolutely welcome to join us. Hunter, do you have another question?
Another one just came in. So Joe wants to know that since this is Sensity data, are there future plans to gather demographic data in some other manner? Age ranges, people visiting the area, I guess additional sources of data outside what's currently being gathered by Sensity.
Bob, do you want to tackle this, or you want us to address this one?
I mean, I can hit first piece of it. You can finish it off. I anticipate over time there will be many, many sources of data that populate CDP. And some of it will be from Sensity, some of it will be from other sensors. And the value for us is it is a single set of data that is the city data that then can be aggregated and people can do stuff with.
Great. I would also echo Bob's sentiment. The ability to collect as much information, again, that makes sense, do so in a way that we can protect the information, but from multiple data streams, multiple inputs, it will be more than just the Sensity data over time. You have to remember that building a smart city is hard. There's a lot of moving parts. It's not just about connected sensors and beacons that you just plug into a Wi-Fi layer. There's a lot that goes into it. Sensity was a great phase one partner that has taken a leadership position, so clearly that availability of data based on Sensity's leadership position early on in the project is now showing up in the Living Lab. But the ability to create other partners' data streams based on other assets and other inputs will become more and more evident as we get into phase 2 and phase 3, and as other cities apparently not only in the U.S. but across the globe join us in being able to help find more data and ability to commercialize smart city and IoT technology.
I would just add that I think it's important to remember that the whole purpose of the Living Lab is to open up this access platform so that there ends up being a lot more data inputs and endpoints. So, the purpose of this is to exponentially grow those streams and to do it with, the community's input.
Great, thanks, Blake. So with that, we don't have any more questions as we are wrapping up this presentation on this webinar for the Kansas City Living Lab launch webinar. If you have additional questions after this presentation, we would encourage you to go to kclivinglab.org, contact us, let us know how we can be of help, let us know what you need, get access to the CDP portal. DevNet provides great tools, APIs, SDKs you can start building on. And one additional reframing and reminder is that if you were to look at the economic value, whether it's from the standpoint of you're a for-profit company, you're a nonprofit organization, you're part of an academic and research facility, or you're a city trying to save money, cities alone are estimated by McKinsey to be able to have a $900 billion to $1.7 trillion of total financial impact by year 2025. Obviously, that impact is being felt already today. Light solutions that Kansas City has deployed and other things like that are already making a financial impact, but the ability to be able to develop technologies in the smart city and the IoT space in an environment to be able to test them, design them, build them in conjunction with partners in this innovation partnership model is hopefully going to be a very good opportunity for everyone involved. And obviously the economics are profound and the opportunity is something that we would love for you to participate in. Again, on behalf of the City of Kansas City, Missouri, Cisco, the other partners, the Kansas City Smart and Connected City project, we're Think Big partners. We are happy to be hosting today's Kansas City Living Lab launch webinar. We invite your participation, and thank you very much for joining us for today's call. Thank you.